So good morning and welcome to our workshop on Jamstack with our BattleStacks application. I can't wait to get started. So let's go ahead and do it. So first things first. And by the way, I've already seen some questions coming in YouTube and Discord regarding things like, hey, do we have to install anything? Is the video going to be available? We are going to answer all of those things. So don't worry. I will say this. Actually, I'll just go ahead and do it. For one, do you have to install anything? No, you don't. We provide everything through the workshop. When we drop you the workshop links and we start going through the materials, we provide everything up on the cloud, right? So you can take that option and you do it all up there. Now there is a local option. If you really want to, you can do things locally. It takes a little bit more skill, but if you're not familiar with it, we really kind of suggest you just do things up on the cloud. But even at the local option, the dependencies that we're going to use today, they're not that big. So it's not too bad. But generally, if you do everything in the Git pod in the online version, no, you don't need to pre-install anything. I did see some questions with regard to beginners saying, hey, I'm beginner at code. Can I do this? We have every bit of code or anything that we're going to do is spelled out in the instructions. So if you follow the instructions step by step, you should have everything you need. We also have full solutions, right? So if you do get stuck at a point, we can get you a solution. I'll tell you, for those of you, if we have some folks on here who are brand new to coding, I'm really interested in your feedback. Not that I'm not interested in anybody else's feedback, but I'm really interested in your feedback if you're brand new to coding for that kind of thing. Okay, so with that, Kirsten, do you have anything else you want to add before we start into what we're doing?
No, I do see some of our eager students are trying to
Yes.
sign up for Astra plans,
Wonderful.
and they're asking
Okay.
about the free versus serverless. So
Yes.
you already answered that question
Okay.
in chat, but I think it's worth calling out. We need you to use the free plan. That's what we're using today.
Yeah.
We're as excited as you are about serverless, but the workshop relies on the free tier.
Yeah, and I will say the serverless option is coming like really soon. Like really, really soon, right? That it's in beta right now. It's gonna pop soon. But yes, as Kirsten said, we are gonna use the free tier. And by the way, I'm glad that you said that, because everything we're gonna do today is on all the stacks, not just with Astra, but Netlify and everything. It's all free. It's all free tier. At no point should you see a credit card or anything like that. So if you do, then you know that you're not using the free tier. So I just want to make that very clear. All right, so first things first is we want to have you get a Menti. So Menti is the platform that we use to interact with you, separate from the chats, right? So we're first going to ask you some questions, and then we're going to use Menti throughout the workshop today for a swag quiz. The top 3 winners will win some cool swag, right? So it's something you definitely want to pay attention to. But here, let me go ahead and bring up. Let's go to our game. So it might help if we actually explain what this BattleStacks game is all about. So by the way, I guess we'll go ahead and try this just for fun. If you really, we had people organically come in yesterday. So this is gonna be interesting. So I have not tried this before, what we're doing right now. I just dropped a link to the actual game. So feel free if you want to join it. But so what this game is essentially, it's, if you've ever played something like Apples to Apples or whatever, a card game, it's a card game where, there you go. You kind of you get asked funny questions. It's almost like you're doing a Mad Libs. Oh, David came in. Now, funny David, you're going to have a special role in this, so I'm going to have to really rely on you. Nice name, by the way, because you're the VIP. The first person is the VIP, so I have a very special role for you today. But what this does is everyone gets going, and it'll ask you questions, right? It's going to ask you like Mad Lib questions, like fill in the blanks. And then you need to answer with the most like provocative or funnier answer. Your goal is to get other people to vote for your question and win. So David, my VIP, you should have a start button, start game. I need you to start the game. Oh, good. Yay. All right, David, you're out there. This is all right. So I'm obviously playing as 3 players. We'll wait for this countdown. You can get some cool XKCD comics while you wait. Then we'll start to be, we'll get asked a set of questions once that countdown goes. Now, I don't know how many people jump down there, and we've never done it like this before. So this will be very interesting. The point about this is that it is implemented in React and Redux. It is fully deployed to a global CDN with Jamstack over Netlify, and all that kind of deal. And it's backed using Astra, which is our Cassandra as a service in the cloud database. So for some of you, you're probably asking, and I saw this question originally, which is, what is Jamstack, right? And what all this? So I'm going to explain it here in a second. But before we do that, what I'm going to do is just kind of give you the rundown of what we're working out of here. So let me go to the chats. Yeah, nothing like the demo gods were not nice to me today. Yes. Yeah, right. Okabe, totally. Requesting a debug session workshop too. Yeah. All right. So the link I just dropped, right, is I want to really point this out because we ran into this yesterday, is to the GitHub repo that we're going to be using today. So everything that we need to do is here in the GitHub repo. But I want to point out what repo we're in. It's DataStax examples. It is DataStax examples. If for some reason, if you followed another link or something and you ended up at DataStax Academy, that is not the right place for today. So please ensure to be at the DataStax examples repo. Otherwise, you're going to get to a certain point in code. You're like, how come I don't have this? Or why is this different? Because they're not the same content. So again, use the link that I just dropped and make sure you go to the wiki. If for some reason you end up at the root of DataStax examples, you will see a whole write-up. This is actually for like a quick launch. But at the very bottom, you'll see a button that says open the workshop. And that'll bring you to the wiki as well. But the key thing is you want to be at DataStax examples, BattleStax wiki. Okay, so then generally speaking, you'll find that at the bottom of each section, as we go through, there will be these big green buttons that say next and going to the next section. We're going to move through this linearly, right? We're going to go through this together. Now, there is a table of contents over here on the right, and you see it. We have this here. You could jump around if you want, but that's kind of going to defeat the purpose of the first run through. And the first run through, you want to move through this linearly and be very sure when we go to the exercises that you're reading the instructions. You don't want to skip anything because we are providing everything for you like step to step to step. And there are some cases that if you skip something, you might skip an important step. Okay, so with that, how are we doing on questions, Kirsten? Anything?
No, Cedric's on it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cedric. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to move next and move to Jamstack. And then I'm just going to talk about this just for a minute, right? And then we're going to get into some exercises. So the question obviously comes up, what is the Jamstack, right? So Jam stands for JavaScript, API, and markup. That's where the Jam and Jamstack comes from. And Jamstack is it's a new emerging architecture for the web. There's actually there's a good amount of Jamstack out there. I think Netlify, and we'll talk more about Netlify here soon. Netlify is probably one of the top providers of the Jamstack platform. But what it is really, it's a combination of, separate from the JavaScript API and the markup pieces, right? So it's a combination of front-end web development with things like serverless functions, statically generated content, and a global CDN that allows you to distribute your data out to folks. And there are multiple iterations of this. There are multiple different kind of flavors, if you will. So you'll see some examples here in all of Jamstack, right? You're not limited to a particular JavaScript framework. You could use React or Angular or Vue, and today we have React in the app. From an API standpoint, we're going to use REST today, but there's also GraphQL options. From the markup, you could use vanilla HTML, which this app uses, or Markdown, right? It really depends on what you want to do in your application and your particular strengths. So there's not just one Jamstack, right? Jamstack, again, is comprised of multiple different options. And as I mentioned, one of the big components or proponents of, or I say components of Jamstack is you use statically generated pages. So what does that mean? So if you think about a traditional website, what do, right? You've got a web server somewhere, you've got some code, you launch that code, and then as your user is interacting with your site, that what they see is being rendered in real time, right? But that rendering takes time. We, and as application developers and those of us who've been doing web development for some time, you spend a lot of time to optimize that. You want that to be as fast as possible, but you're always going to be limited by that render time to some degree. So in Jamstack, you statically generate the content. So that means that all of your pages are being pre-rendered. They're being generated ahead of time. So when your users interact with your site, they're actually interacting with that static content. There's no live rendering happening. So from a performance standpoint, it's actually a lot better. Now you might be asking though, well, wait a minute. If it's statically generated content, how do I add dynamic data into my site? And that's where things like serverless functions, using asynchronous APIs and stuff like that, that's where that comes into play. So just because you have static pages doesn't mean you can't have dynamic content. But again, it uses statically generated pages to provide a faster, a better performance. Then Jamstack is also powered on what's called CDNs, which is a content delivery network, right? So CDNs have actually been around for quite some time, but they're kind of getting re-energized, if you will, with stuff like this. So here's what a CDN is. Imagine in the traditional sense, you have your normal web server, right? And that web server is where you would serve up your web pages. Now, historically, what we would do with this is you'd have maybe a web server, a couple web servers, or depending on the size of your site, that are, say, in a geographical location, right? Maybe you have a server over here in North America. Now, that's great for the users that are in that region, but what happens if you have users that are over here in Australia, right? Well, then they have to, they have latency that's incurred from just the speed of wire, right? Physics gets in the way, and light, you're limited by the speed of light, even though it's not that fast. It's the speed of wire, it's a little bit different. But it's the time it takes electrons to move, right, from one place all the way to the other part of the world. And at one time, that was acceptable, but not today, not anymore. And pretty much all of us expect that all of our sites are going to be instantaneous, and they're going to respond, immediately. So we need something that can help push the data around, push our sites around, so it gets it as close to our users as possible. That's where CDN comes into play. So instead of having just like a single server, you see that the content, the statically generated content, is being pushed down to all of these other edge locations. And then our users, when they come to the site, they actually end up interacting with those edge locations. So the point being, it brings the data and the site and the content as close to them as possible, so they can have the most responsive, access.
Yeah, CDNs are really amazing, and just to touch a little bit on what Ava was talking about, one of the reasons that this sort of framework works so well with CDNs is because they are statically generated pages. Obviously, if it were something like WordPress where it generates the pages on the fly, it's much more difficult for those edge servers to have what you want your users to see. And it also gives them a chance to fail over. If something happens to one of their edge servers, they can give you the content from somewhere else nearby. That's right. It's really just a great setup.
Yes. No, it's a very good point. So if you look at the architecture, the logical architecture, there's a little bit difference in the traditional web. In both we have our client, of course, but then you're going to have some web server somewhere, usually some app server, and then that talks to a database and so on and so forth. You notice in Jamstack, it's a little consolidated, right? Where what happens is now, because we are statically generating our content, that's being distributed to the CDN. Now that's what the client is interfacing with. But as I mentioned before, when you want to have that dynamic content, that's where microservices and APIs come from. So if you're thinking like, what's a microservice? Well, imagine, and we'll actually work with one today, but imagine you have a case where you have some specific function. Maybe it's just CRUD operations on your database, when you're interacting with your database, and you have a service that's what it does. It is answering that one question, and it does that one thing very well. So then you can use something like that with, say, like a REST API or something, where from the front end, you can make an asynchronous call to that microservice, get the information you need, and then populate your display, your view. So Jamstack really consolidates a lot of what we would traditionally had in multiple layers of servers and databases into, less layers is what it comes down to. I already mentioned on the pre-rendering piece, we've talked about the statically generated pages. Really what this translates into is performance. There's also another piece there, which I'll talk about in a second, with security. Decoupling, so Jamstack, compared to being a single monolith, right, where you have all of your code and all of your capabilities that are in one single app that you deploy, as we mentioned a second ago, that's actually decoupled into more modular microservices and code. So that actually, I find from the development standpoint, microservices are much easier to develop to. Yes, there may be more of them compared to your monolith, but because each microservice just does an individual thing, and that's its job, it's a lot less mental load to get in there and to make changes and do things with a microservice than it is a big monolith, right? So it's just a different approach. Excuse me. And then as far as the CDN part, as we were talking about a moment ago, with Netlify, which is what we're going to use today in our Jamstack, it is a global CDN. When you push your code out to production, you're actually pushing it out to a global CDN. So you're getting this stuff by default. So why is this so cool, right? I mean, we've already talked about some cool things, but why is this so cool? One, which may not seem obvious at first, is security, right? Because data in the site is statically generated, and that content is pushed out along around a CDN, you actually get an extra layer or layers of obfuscation there. So the attack vectors from a hacker are decreased. Because if you think about it, if I had a traditional web server and that's where my users were going to then, view my website, then a hacker, if they can get into that web server, then they can do damage. But in the case of statically generated content and the fact that the data is pushed out into the CDN, where essentially it doesn't expose the web server at all, right? That's behind what's going on in the CDN and everything, then that reduces the ways that the hackers can get in and do bad things. That's really what that comes down to. Scalability, there's no doubt that, for one, having your data distributed across the globe like that is definitely more scalable than having a single web server. And from the sheer fact that you're using statically generated pages that a lot of times CDNs are offering up cached versions of and stuff, I mean, they scale much better. And that leads directly into performance. Matter of fact, the first time, this is Cedric. Cedric did this, by the way. He did this. That's his joke. And it's really funny. The first time I came to it, I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, oh, I had to read it. Yeah. So yeah, it really comes down to scalability and performance, and making it uber easy to push an app to production. From a maintained... Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, what's up, Kirsten? Nope, go for it.
Cedric wanted me to say hi on screen, so...
Oh, hi. Hi, Kirsten. Hi. No. Let's see. Why do I think... Oh, I was looking at Rishba. Okay. No, I don't do the free coding on Free Code Camp. But we've been around. We've been around before. Before COVID and stuff, we did a lot of workshops, like in person at conferences and stuff. So maybe. Oh yeah, we just proved it was live too. Yeah. Okay, so from a maintainability standpoint, this one's actually really cool. When I first started looking at Jamstack and learning about this, and I got really excited because, like, you could be a single developer, front-end developer, no less. And I am not kidding you. You can build a whole app and you can push it with a cloud-based database, serverless functions. What we're going to do in Netlify, it's all of the IT, the management stuff is all being managed for you across this whole stack, right? It's really powerful stuff. So our goal today is, by the end, is that you're going to be pushing this app to production and you're going to get a feel for all of these various tools. From the portability standpoint, essentially what this comes down to is, because we're using statically generated sites, you really don't need any special code or, like special programs or anything to run this. You could kind of run it anywhere. So it's very portable. And then finally, for the developer experience, that's what we're going to do today. You're going to get the feel for what that developer experience is. Okay, so Netlify. So I've said Netlify now a couple times. What is that all about? So Netlify is the service that we're going to use as part of our Jamstack that is responsible for not only doing our pre-builds of data and everything, but it is the global CDN, it is the serverless functions, and it's got part of the CI/CD pipeline built in. What's really cool about Netlify is it has an integration with GitHub. And for those of you familiar with GitHub, then you know that's where we're using Git, and we're doing all of our code sourcing and stuff. That's where our code's going to be. That's where our application's going to live. Well, GitHub has capabilities called GitHub Actions, which give you, when I say CI/CD, I'm saying continuous integration, continuous delivery. That's essentially when you have unit tests and functional tests, those types of things that when you want to do fast coding and get changes out, you need to make sure you have automatic testing in place. Well, between GitHub Actions and between Netlify, you have all of that is available for you all online in these services. And so you've got that whole pipeline that's there. So Netlify integrates with GitHub, and it's going to integrate that. We're going to do that today, and it provides all sorts of functions. Now, to be clear, static pages and serverless functions are not the only thing that Netlify does, but we're only going to focus on those today. I'll talk a little bit more about what it does soon. Okay. Oh, yeah, Arvind asks in Discord, how long do you estimate it will take to build the app and push it to production for today's demo? Well, if you want to really get down to it, you could, once we get the initial setup going, and we kind of hook up your database environment variables, you could literally push, I'm giving away the fun at the end, you could literally push the full game branch and have it running in like 5 minutes. It's going to take, though, I would say, let's give it an hour, just because we're going to be stepping through that. But then once you've gotten to that point, you're going to start pushing right away. Actually, you're going to push the first portion of the app before it's ready in the first 5-10 minutes of us doing this. Okay. So today, all of the code, everything we're doing is in GitHub, right? It's all in that link that I gave you. Please, again, remember, be at the DataStax examples repo, not the DataStax Academy repo. That's the one I dropped. I can drop it again if you need it.
Also,
yep.
Just a heads up for those of you who don't have GitHub accounts, you definitely need to have a GitHub account in order for this to work. So just going to call that out there.
Yeah, and Siddhant over in YouTube was saying the materials in GitHub is showing page not found. That is very strange. Let me go ahead and drop the link again. If you can, give me a link, but just make sure that you're going there. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if that didn't exist. Because I'm going to go through the same exact materials with all of you today, by the way. Okay, so as I already mentioned, Netlify is integrated with GitHub, so you're going to see that integration. For our code, you will use an IDE. We'll provide one for you up in Gitpod, up in the cloud. That's what Kirsten was just talking about, needing a login to GitHub. You can do it locally as well, but we do suggest using the Gitpod route because we've pre-built everything for you. And then finally, so you see here is the Netlify piece we were talking about. I mentioned GitHub, Gitpod, and then check this out. For those of you who are familiar with Cassandra, Apache Cassandra, you would be used to doing things from CQL with tables and queries, the kind of normal way you would do it. What you would not be used to is being able to use a REST API, GraphQL, or a document API with Cassandra. But Stargate is an open source project. You can find it at Stargate.io. We do have links that are in the docs. And what it does is it adds that layer. It adds that API layer on Apache Cassandra. So even if you're using open source Apache Cassandra, you can use Stargate to add REST, GraphQL, and document APIs to your Cassandra. Okay.
If you're not sure what document API is, you can think of it as sort of how MongoDB keeps their collections and documents and their JSON in the database. So that's what we're doing for you, is creating that interaction.
Yes. Okay, last part. So you notice in most of the sections at the end, we'll have this kind of like want to learn more. What we've tried to do is this. Given the amount of content we have to get through today, we're not going to be able to get really deep into any one topic, right? So we're going to kind of gloss over them. But we've tried to do our best to curate a bunch of materials for you. So if you want to find out more about what is a CDN, right? Like, why do I, what's a static generator or whatever? We've tried to bring you some resources that you can then take a look at on your own time and figure out more of what those are. Okay, so in this one, I'm going to click on that lab one. Okay, so we should all be here. Let me go ahead and drop that just to be sure. Oh, thanks, Carolina. Yeah, it takes, we love doing this. It takes a lot of work to put these together, and we try to really make it as clear and concise and everything as possible. So I hope that's the case. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to give you about 15 minutes here. I'll set a timer, and then we're going to be quiet. We'll let you work and go through. Now, it's very important that you read. In these times, we try to bake in enough time for you to read. You don't have to speed through it or anything like that. And in the last 5 minutes, we'll start answering some questions live. So in the meantime, if we see questions come up, we'll be typing away. But we'll give you some time to go ahead and get into the lab. I will do them with you. I'm actually going to do it along with you silently, just so you can get a reference. If you have any questions at all, ask, right? Just ask. There's no bad question. Don't be shy. Don't think that, oh, I'm going to look stupid or something. No, go for it and ask. And we are happy. That's what we're here for, right? So let me go ahead and get our timer going. Okay, and bloop, there you go.
And before you get going, I just want to highlight one thing that is super important. You may know GitHub, you may be super familiar with GitHub and like forking repositories, but this demo works best when you use the template version.
Yes, thank
so
you for saying that, Kirsten. Okay, so I'm gonna just do it so everybody can see this. Thank you for pointing that out. So it is what I'm just about to do is actually explicitly here in the instructions. But to Kirsten's point, make sure that when you go to copy the repo, it is in the instructions, you do the use this template option. Do not fork this, please. Because if you fork it, and we actually find it funny enough, I saw the emails yesterday and I didn't see them during the workshop, but we had a ton of people who forked instead. And when they were trying to check their changes back, they're like, my changes aren't getting to master. Why? Because they were pushing them back to the parent repo because they forked. So if you use this template, you will have no fear of that. You'll actually just be able to PR right back to your master. That is key. So please, please, please use a template. Okay, so with that, I'll be quiet. I'll let everybody get into it and ask your questions, and good luck. And yes, I should point out that from the GitHub standpoint, you will need to be logged in to create your own repo. When you create an account for Netlify, you'll need to give it permissions to your GitHub and stuff because it is in fact going to integrate with your repo. I just want to point that out. Hey, everybody, I'll ask if you do, for some reason, come across a case where you're getting a 404 or you're getting a page not found, please post the link. Just go ahead and paste it right in the chat so I can see what the link is. Because you shouldn't have any 404s here. But if there is something that we missed, then I want to know, and so we can get it fixed. Oh, are they blocked?
No.
They might not be able to post it. Well, that's a good reason to go to Discord. Hey, Cedric, would you mind dropping the Discord link if you have it handy over in the YouTube chat? Okay, let's see. Where are we on time? Okay.
David, Rashab has a question. He's when he's signing into Netlify, it asks what kind of project he's making. I don't think it really matters. I think that's just for their data. Is that correct?
You know, that's a good question. I honestly have not come across that in so long. I don't remember what it is. I don't remember it being an issue or like being impactful on this. So I don't have a good answer for you, honestly, for now, because I've already signed in, so I can't see it right now. Or, I mean, I've already gone through that whole process.
I think there's a dev or development thing.
Yeah, I would just pick the dev one then, if that's the case, if that's what you're running into, because like I said, I don't think it was impactful here.
Right.
Oh, he clicked skip. Okay, skip the skip. Yeah. I saw a question. Vinay, do we just deploy or continue to set up custom domain? You just deploy. We're not actually setting up a custom domain today. While you can do that, I will talk about that in a minute. There's no need, there's no requirement to do that for what we're doing today. So, Siddhant, when you create the new site in Netlify, I think that's what you're referring to. When you say create new site in Git, you're going to be presented with some dialogues that will ask, per your account, your GitHub account, which repositories do you want to use? And you have to follow the dialogues. You can either choose it to say, hey, give me access to all of your repositories or just a specific one. And then you just pick the repository. So in this case, the BattleStacks one that we're creating today. When you do that, right then, that's what links it together. That's what will actually link your Netlify account to that particular repository. You do not need to worry about, for those of you who are asking the questions, like when you get to the new repo and it's saying this, do you need to pull request these? No, you don't need to worry about any of those. We will actually be working off of a different branch that we're going to create, and we're going to work off of just that one branch. Just ignore these. Oh, you want to make your repo public. Make your repo public. Yes. Yeah, because if you start going private, GitHub's gonna want to start charging you for stuff. Yeah, so no, go public. Yep. Thank you for your question, Rehan. All right, let's see. How are we doing on those? So we got about 40 people in. I think we're getting to our last couple. Yeah, we got almost 3.5 minutes left. And if you want, let me see real quick. Good. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up in the Menti if you're done. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know you're done there. Okay. Yeah, Nishant, what does compare and pull request mean? So you are going to go through this process. What this is it's actually, I find it to be as part of when you're doing like, code source control and stuff. It's a really important process. So GitHub, not Git, but GitHub has this concept of pull requests. So let's say you want to make changes to master, right? Or trunk or whatever it is. And you want to push those changes back in. Well, you could just push them right in and say, hey, those changes are now on my master branch. Or what you can do is you issue what's called a pull request. So you say, I want to push those changes to master. Then in GitHub, you issue the pull request and you can assign reviewers to it. And what's really nice is within GitHub, then your reviewers and other people can actually take a look at all the code. They can make comments. That's a way that they can actually use to review your request, get that information back to you, and then they can approve it. And then once you get those approvals, you can say, okay, now it's good to go. Now go ahead and merge it. So it offers you a nice extra step before you just pushing changes right into like, well, it doesn't have to be master, it could be any branch, but it's a good step for collaboration. It's really, if you're working on a team, pull requests are the way to go, honestly. Okay. Yes, David Berg, thank you for pointing that out. David Berg says, I had to click the GitHub authorization on Netlify a couple times if anyone has the same problem. So what Netlify is doing when you first connect up with it, once you do it, by the way, you don't have to do it again. But when you first connect up with it, you're giving it permission to talk to your GitHub repos, right? That's why there's all that authorization stuff. But once you do it once, then that's it. Bergie, you didn't do anything wrong. Exactly. I see that Kirsten answered it just now. Yeah, that's later. You didn't have to do a pull request or anything. At this point, all we have done, to be clear, is deployed the site. So you should see something like this, right? You see this production master at head. We've actually deployed our code, what was in our code, but we have not done any pull requests or anything. We will get to that. Yeah, Ratik, I will talk about the custom domain and the secure HTTPS option coming up soon. Okay. Wonderful. Okay.
David, Rayhan is having a question about the name not found, although you're just supposed to, I mean, if you do the template thing, then you just type in the name.
I use the template, good. Repo. Let me see. Use template. Some random code in running in the deploy log. What's that? Pipelines. Yes, Lakshya, we will talk about the CI/CD pipelines and what that's about. Site deploying progress. Let's see. It should only take a couple minutes to do the deploy. For those who are asking. Let's see. I'm trying to go back to what Rahan is saying though, but saying his name not found.
Somebody in yesterday's workshop had that very same problem, but I don't recall what the issue was.
Oh, Jakub, you know, I'll admit, for the GitHub the private repos, the repo itself can be free. That's fine if you use private, but then it's when you start using some of the other interactions that they start charging. And I ran into that here. That's actually why we're using public repos, to make sure it's free across the board and you're not like all of a sudden being charged for things. So yes, as I understand it, the doing private on its own is free, but then as you start to use some of the functionality, then you get charged for things. Okay. All right. So, Rahan, we're not abandoning you. I will come back to you. Don't worry about the custom domain. That is a share. Yeah. Don't worry about a custom domain. Once you get to a point where your site is deployed like this, that's all we need to do at this point.
Rayhan, are you logged in to GitHub?
Yeah. Make sure that you're logged into to GitHub, and also Rahan, make sure, here, let's go ahead and I will make sure you are here. I'm just going to drop you this link. Kenneth, we will talk about the CI/CD pipeline, so it's coming up. Okay, so Rehan, I just dropped you the link. Just make sure you go there and make sure you are logged in to GitHub, because if I were to log out, I'm curious if I do that real quick, will I even see the button? Go back to that again real quick. So I've logged myself out. Right. Well, see, in this case, I wouldn't expect that I even have the template button at all because I'm not logged in.
Yeah.
So I'm actually surprised that he was seeing that at all. All right. Okay.
And Vishnu is very excited about your highlighting, so he wants to know what you're using. Oh,
that's called mouse posé. If you're talking about whoop, yeah, yeah, it's called mouse posé. Yeah. And Rishaba, we're not going to set up a custom domain. We don't need to worry about that right now. All right. So what we do need to move on to our first quiz. So I did promise everybody that we will give you a moment to get into it. We will come back to your question. So the next part, for those of you who have deployed to Netlify first, go ahead and move over to Lab 2, create your Astra instance. And we will take just about 10 minutes for this one. There we go. All right. Oh, yeah. Let me get you the Discord link. Yeah, Rehan, we'll get you the Discord link. Let me drop it here in a second, and that it'll be much easier for you to drop us some screens and stuff so we can help troubleshoot. You're a little more limited on the YouTube chat. All right, here. Hey, Cedric, can you drop the Discord link in the YouTube chat, perchance? So Rehan can come on over. Or I can try to pull it up. I don't know if I have it handy.
I got it. It's actually, if you are looking at the YouTube page, it's...
oh, there it is. Thank you, Cedric. Rehan, go there, join our Discord, and that way, if we can get some screens and stuff of what's going on, we can help you a lot more. And if you're curious, when you go to select your region, just select the one that's closest to you. If you're over more in EMEA or APAC, Europe West 1 is probably going to be the better choice. If you're over in the Americas, US East is probably the best choice. And today I will pick the correct values. Yesterday, if anyone happened to be with us, you watched me fat finger a value of my key space, and I kind of caused myself some problems.
The demo demons have to have something to do.
Right? I just totally backed myself out of the page. It's okay. I'm not worried. Do it again. If you're from India, I would pick the European one. Here, matter of fact, I'll show you this one. Europe West 1. And it says that in the instructions, but we really do ask that you use these values today. If you don't, that's fine. Just know that for any of the queries and things, we've set it all up to use the BattleStack's key space, right? So if you don't use the BattleStack's key space, then you're gonna be like, why is my query not working? Well, you need to put in the key space that you use. So that's why we just suggest that you use these values. Hey, hi Rehan. Woohoo! All right, we're in our last 5 minutes, so I'll talk about the key space, Lakshya. So the key space in Cassandra, right? We haven't really talked about what Cassandra is so much. We're going to here in a moment. But the key space in Cassandra is essentially equivalent to a database or a schema that you might find in relational databases. It's the place where it's the container of your tables, right? So I'll create a key space, and then within my key space is where I'm going to store all my various tables. There is another key significance about it that gets more into the Cassandra fundamentals, that's also where you set replication. I'll talk about that when we talk about Cassandra in a moment. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Let's see. Cool. All right, good. Shut up. All right. How are we doing on thumbs up? Got a couple more minutes. Yep, that's right. Once you get to this point here, and you have, I mean, you don't have to. Could have been in pending, but once you get here, we're good. So actually, if you even get here and it says pending, you're good, right? If you have the BattleStacks DB database and you're pending, you're fine, because by the time we get through the next section, it'll be active. Yeah, Albert, over in YouTube, how does Astra provide a free cloud instance without actual AWS or Google Cloud account? Are you launching Cassandra inside EC2 or GCP instances? So, right, you don't need your own account, but we have our own, right? And matter of fact, if you notice in the free tier, even though AWS, Azure, and GCP are all available, you can only choose GCP. That's for us, because it is a free tier. We're providing that as a free service. GCP is actually the cheapest for us to do it on. So we are provisioning all of those within GCP ourselves. Oh, Vishnu, the mouse cursor thing is called Mouse Pose. Yeah, that's what I'm using, Mouse Pose. It's a really cool tool. I got that from one of our other team members, Alex, who you usually see here. All right, how are we doing on our thumbs up? I feel like we have a good amount of folks that have gotten through things. Got about 2 minutes left. I want to make sure folks have time. I also want to keep us on time. Let's see. Yeah, Navi, it is a 2.5 hour session. So we're going to really try to keep it within 2.5 hours. We might go a little over. I'm hoping we don't. So that should be 5:30. Well, wait, it depends on what time zone you're in. That's 5:30 for me. But it's 2.5 hours. It's a 2.5 hour session. All right. All right, just about another minute or two left.
And if you are stuck on something, please go ahead and say so in the chat so that we can help you get through it.
Yes, please. You know, Nishant, yes, I'm sure DataStax is hiring. If you go to our careers page, let's see, it's DataStax. Don't notice that I just misspelled careers, okay? You can see my education level is great. Yeah, here we go. So, yeah, always feel free to take a look at our careers page because, yes, the key space should be BattleStacks. Perfect.
And most of our, engineers are core committers on the Cassandra or Stargate projects.
That's right.
So
That's right.
One of the ways to sort of ramp up on that is we have a couple of Cassandra classes, we have Stargate class, and you can participate in the community that is building Cassandra and understand more about how it works. So
exactly. All right, good. We're getting a good amount of thumbs up here. I'm going to turn off our timer and get us ready. So what I'm going to do now is just go... Menti is blank for you, huh? Maybe reload Menti, okay, Sergio? If it is blank for you for some reason, just go ahead and reload it. Oh, thank you, Kirsten. Okay, all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move in now to the next section, move to Netlify. I'll go ahead and drop the link as well, just to make sure that everyone can follow along exactly where we are. Hopefully nobody's saying any, well, thanks, Arvind. Yeah. You know, funny enough, from the music standpoint, I actually use YouTube Studio. It's copyright-free music. It's really awesome. It's an awesome resource for what we do, because otherwise, you know, I like creating music, but it's hard to have the time to do that when we're building these things. Okay, so now just to explain a little bit more about Netlify, just to get into a little bit more detail, right? Because we've just kind of scratched the surface of what's going on here. So one thing you may have noticed at this point is, you know, you did that initial deploy. So what that did is it took that GitHub repo, right, the one we connected it to, and it actually deployed the code from there up into Netlify. But there's a little bit more going on under the hood, right? So if you take a look, now this isn't something you have to worry about following along with, I'm just going to show you. But if you take a look at the way that Netlify defaults to building like this deploy context here. So what's happening is by default, Netlify allows you to configure your builds, and it by default will talk to master, right? So it's saying that any change to master, anytime you commit a change to master or merge something into master, it is going to kick off a build. Now, you can be more selective like we are here, or you can actually tell it, hey, you know, you can change the settings and you can say, I want you to kick off of this branch, or I want you to key off of this branch, right? But for our purposes here today, we're just focused on mastering. But that's what we're talking about here with configure builds up here with Netlify. It does give you a lot of flexibility there. And the way, you know, how your sites deploy, if you notice, for those of you familiar with like NPM and running, you'll notice that it should look very familiar, how to run. This is actually running the very commands you might use to build your application locally, right? So there's all sorts of settings that are here in Netlify that you can change. But again, for our purposes, anything off of master is going to automatically kick off a build. Now, if we look at some of the other features, Netlify does offer the ability, you can have analytics on your sites. Now, this comes up to a question that a lot of you were asking originally, which is, hey, do I need to do anything with a custom domain or use HTTPS? No, not today. However, you can totally do that. If you want to, if you think about it, right? If I hit a real site and a real app in a, you know, something that I'm trying to push out to production and have people to use, I'm probably not going to use a randomly generated name for that. I'm going to set up a custom domain, right? And then you want to secure your sites, and Netlify offers that with HTTPS for free, actually. So you can just get that. There are some other options here as well. You notice that they have some cool form options where you can get things like notifications based off of form submissions. The two I really like, though, are the CLI and the API. CLI being command line interface, and then API being application programming interface. These two, Netlify was clearly built, and this is something I get from, obviously, their docs, but from observation and using it, it was clearly built with people being able to do things programmatically from the back end in mind. So it's actually got a very expressive CLI and API that you can use separate from just the web-based UI that's here. There's a lot you can do in automation with Netlify behind the scenes. So it's pretty darn it's pretty darn capable. Notice here, by the way, that each of these are links. So if you want to get more information and get deeper into any one of those, then you can link into their docs. But the part that I really want to focus on today are Netlify functions. This is going to be kind of the core key thing that we are doing with regard to our Jamstack app now. So what this means, what is this about? So remember we talked about we're going to have statically generated pages. That's great and all. But then how do I dynamically change the content, or how do I talk to a database or whatever? That's where our serverless functions come into play. So in Netlify, you configure a file called the Netlify toml. So if you go into your repository, and if you look at the root of your repository, once my thing reloads, here we go, you'll notice here is my Netlify toml. This right here is the thing that is setting the configuration. It's saying, hey, what am I going to use to build? Where are my serverless functions? That's what functions is saying. So we're saying my serverless functions are going to be in a directory functions, right? Pretty simple. Then from that point on, if you want a function to be a serverless function, you literally drop it into that folder in your project and you export a handler. That's what this is doing here. You're going to do this here in a moment, okay? That's it. That alone is enough to make that a serverless function and have Netlify treat it as such. As a matter of fact, if you take a look at your site, you'll notice if you go to functions, you actually have two now. Why? Because as part of the app, we stub them out for you. They're not doing anything just yet. but they do exist. They've been stubbed out. They export a handler. They're in the functions directory. So Netlify says, okay, these are serverless functions. I'm now going to deploy them as such. And then with that, with the want to learn more section, we did provide some documents and stuff, but here, this tutorial, if you really want to get into a lot more on that one, this tutorial is really nice. It really spells it out really well. So I suggest taking a look at that.
When we get to the Git pod section, we should be able to help you with that.
Okay. All right, so we are going to move on to lab 3, Hello World. This is where you're going to deploy your first serverless function in Netlify. We'll give you about 20 minutes for this one. Let me go ahead and get that going. And there you go. And again, don't forget, when you finish with Hello World, give us a thumbs up. Let us know you're done.
Hey, David, have you seen the issue in the YouTube chat with Gitpod before?
Becca Chu, I am looking at that one, and I have not seen that one before.
I believe it's when you're building the link, if it's not built quite correctly.
that would make sense, actually. So here, I'm going to build that link right now. So let's do it together and see what happens. Your link should look something like this. Of course, this is my repo, so you want to reflect your repo, Becca Chu, but it should look just like this.
Is that Orange Loon?
Was that?
Orange Loon? I'm just looking at your the Gitpod address for your...
Oh, it is Orange Loon. I see what you're talking about now. By the way, I think we're going to have a better experience today. Yesterday, we had a couple hundred people on, and Gitpod was getting hit, and you could tell. It's already responding today. I don't think we're going to have the same issue. But Gitpod might take a moment the first time to come up. That's okay. You'll see that blue cube. It's got to download resources, pull Docker images, all sorts of things. Yeah, Dunk PVT, that's correct. It's going to take a moment to pull the Docker images. You know, that will vary depending on where you are in Gitpod and everything. But once you have that, it's actually, you can see here, it's building the app. This is all the stuff we're building. We're pulling the dependencies. We're doing all that for you. This is what you'd have to do yourself locally if you're doing it on your own.
It's very similar to some of the stuff you saw when Netlify was building the app.
And I do want to point out, all of the steps are important, but it's really important step 1B and stuff that you are following these and executing the steps here. Especially step 1D.
Yeah, Nishant, it's basically a cloud version of code.
Yeah, it's a cloud-based IDE. It's hooked up to GitHub. It's free, and you can use it to collaborate with other team members. And as you can tell here, you can actually code right in it. It's really awesome, especially for workshops, because we can preload a lot of things. Yeah. I'm laughing at Sedant. Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Yeah, Risaba, sometimes it'll just take a moment. So I would say be patient. You should have enough time for this one.
We'll take care of the env file in a later page.
Yes, yes. Oh, by the way, key thing, everybody, when you start editing code, either turn on autosave or don't forget to save as you make changes. If you don't save, you will find that you'll get errors. So this step here, as you get into the part where you're actually pushing these changes back, for those of you who were asking about pull requests earlier, now you're going to start to see that process. The first time, if you've never done this before, it might feel like a lot of steps, but once you get the process, it becomes totally second nature. It's actually, I think it's a wonderful process actually to have, because it really does kind of force you to step back and take a look at the changes that you've made before you really commit them back to your master or your trunk.
And if you're working on a couple of different things at the same time, it allows you to kind of keep them separate from each other. Which is,
and it gives your team a chance to be able to review what you're doing as well, which is really key. Oh, yeah, Kirsten, you were talking about what Dank said about the env file. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it now. Yeah, Avinash, I would authorize Gitpod. I mean, you're gonna have to, if you're getting asked that question to use it. So yes. Yes, Ratik, you've got to, make sure to save your code. Yeah, that's why I made that comment earlier. We ran into that yesterday. I totally forgot to mention that, and the autosave isn't on. So people were making changes here, and then it wasn't working, and it's because they weren't saving. Yeah. Kirsten, you don't happen to have the local version running right now, do you?
No, I can pull it though.
Yeah, because I don't know if you see the issue that.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's a versioning issue with the dependencies, which of course can happen. But let me just clone this down and see what happens.
Yeah, Nudel, with us on here, sometimes it can take just a moment. I would say be patient. So far, we have found that even when we're doing some of the workshops, we have enough folks on at once that it seems to load things up a little bit. But it will happen. It will eventually happen. Yeah, Annie, that is because we have stubbed out a lot of what's there. So if you start a new game, that it's not going to do anything yet. But if you follow the instructions, if you go back up, where are they? Here. You're going to see an instruction like this, right? When you do that, then what this is going to do is right there, that is going to be hitting the Hello World endpoint. You should then be able to see Hello World once you've done that. Jacob, the port is actually going to be configured in your app, right? If you've already got something on 3, it actually runs at 8888 as well, so maybe try there. Matter of fact, the instruction is, I believe, even in the local one, is also for using 8888, so maybe go ahead and give that a shot. Zinyep, yeah, you shouldn't have to clone specifically or explicitly, I'm sorry. If you're using Gitpod, that should have already been done for you. You should not have to do that again. But if you're doing local, then you, at this point, would have cloned already. That's part of the local instructions. But yeah, if you're using Gitpod, you shouldn't have to. Yes, Kenneth, using git remote-v. That's correct. That's exactly why we have that step in there. We want to ensure that you're using your repo, not the parent repo. That's kind of a key thing. I did not respond. Did you both, Hussein and Karen share, did you do npm run dev? Did you do this step here? Oh, it's up here. It's up here. Here. Did you do this step here? Yes, Stank, you've got it. Yes, Stank has got it. So you do the npm run dev, right? I'll go ahead and just do it again so you can see it. So you make the changes to your code, right? Save those changes. Then, once you do your tests and stuff, you say npm run dev to run the application. That will then give you access to the serverless Hello World endpoint. But then you open up another terminal to do that, right? Because you have this running here in the foreground. And then when you come to a new terminal, if you say terminal, new terminal, it'll create a new terminal. And then if you run the preview, that should hit the hello world endpoint. Oh, make my terminal bigger? Okay, got it. Here, let me open that.
It appears that we do have a dependency issue, but I'm double checking.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's TypeScript in my case, but
Nishant, if you're seeing that, that tells me
legacy peer depths actually works. He says. So.
Okay, Nishant, if you're seeing that error, that feels to me like your hello world code is not saved. Make sure it's saved. Cool, yay! It looks like Annie and Kara and Sherry, you're getting through. Good. Yay! Awesome.
So it looks like we're going to need to do some work with our dependency tree and get that to
I wonder if that's recent, though, because all of this worked like yesterday.
Yeah. I don't know that we had any local
we had
people.
Some. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we definitely had some local folks. And I mean, I ran through it myself, too. So...
Yeah, but
I would say if you are... Okay,
happy new Node module day. So.
Yeah, so if you are doing it locally, and if you're having any struggle with dependencies, I would say at this point, just go ahead and go to Gitpod. We'll have to check that. I mean, we ran through this multiple times locally. I actually ran it myself locally, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But we'll have to take a look. Function works. I know that run the test in local. Use the command mentioned in the wiki. Okay. How are we doing on time, by the way? Okay, we're in our last 4 minutes. All right. All right. Thank you, Katri. Yeah. I'm sorry that you're running into challenge there. I might suggest for now, maybe pop back over to Gitpod, and do it there. We'll have to take a look at something. I know that we have vetted all of the local commands and everything, but at the same time, if you're getting dependency issues, that seems maybe there's something going on there.
I'm able to run the test. I'm getting issues because I haven't set any environment variables or anything.
Right.
But it ran the Hello World test just fine. So npm run test functions.
Santosh, if you're getting that error, that feels like the Hello World code wasn't saved. So just make sure that you're saving it, and then run it again. Oh, and Redual is saying that they have it working on their local host, so they're doing it local as well.
Yeah, and I'm good.
Oh, what'd you find?
This npm dependencies issues could show up if you use DataStax Academy repo.
Oh,
but I didn't.
Okay, so... that's very interesting though. Yeah, make sure. Okay, if you are seeing, thank you, Ion. If you are seeing any kind of npm dependencies, you're doing it local. Make sure that you use the DataStax examples repo, not the Academy repo.
For sure, and I'll check mine, but I'm pretty sure I was. Make that repo so many times.
Yeah, Hassan over in YouTube, right? Once you have made the modifications to your Hello World, and then you push those changes, now don't forget you got to come up. Once you push, that's one step, right? But now you got to come into your GitHub, and that's where you go through all the steps with the pull request. So make sure that you're going through the steps to then use a pull request, merge your changes into master. At the end, you want to get to a screen that looks just like this, where you've merged into master with your pull request. Then you're good to go.
I have to fess up. I did use the DataStax Academy for that last time I made the copies. It's all my bad.
Oh, actually, I meant to go to the other one. Okay, and I know we're coming up. Okay, we have about a minute left here.
No, because there's no env dot message.
Okay. There's my hello world. Let's see. Now make sure too that when you are doing the push back, right? If you remember, there was a set of commands that are here. These are important. Also ensure that before you did anything there, that, where it is, right here, right? This one, make sure that you had checked out and created a new local branch called my branch. We're going to make all of our changes in my branch. Also, make sure you set your origin. You config this correct. That's why these steps are so important. I'm not suggesting that if you're seeing anything that you must have missed one of these, but I just want to ensure that folks did in fact do these steps, because then that will set you up to have the correct configuration so you can push back smoothly. Let's see. Right, so when you push back to master, Hassan, okay, that's where that pull request comes into play. So let me go ahead and bring that up real fast. And let me stop the timer. And we'll go ahead and go over this real fast. All right, so if you take a look, if I go back to my pull request here now, that one's closed. So what'll happen is this. Say I go to my code and I'm in master, right? Once I've pushed the changes from Gitpod or my local in, I've made the changes to my branch, and then I'm going to push those back up, right? Well, then in GitHub, if I go to my branch, then what I can do is I can say I want a pull request. Now, I've already done the pull request, so there's not going to be anything to compare. But what'll happen is, since you've pushed those changes up from your development environment, right, into my branch, it'll say, hey, this is a commit ahead of master. Do you want to make a pull request? And that's where you make that pull request. So if you take a look at it, and it's not going to be in master yet. You have to make the pull request first. Once you've made the pull request and then you've merged it, you've approved it, that's where this shows up. So if we take a look though, and if you take a look at the checks, what'll happen is this. You probably saw something like that. This was on my screen, all these tests and everything. So what it's actually doing is, when you make the pull request, it's automatically kicking off. This is where the GitHub Actions with CI/CD come into play, continuous integration, continuous development. So what that means is that there's an automated system in place that's now kicking off all of your unit tests, your function tests, all that kind of deal. It's actually, you notice it's even building. It's actually up on the cloud. It is building a node and doing all the same types of things that we would in our environment, things like npm install, all of that. So it's emulating our real system. It's then running the tests and everything right here. And it does all of those before you push it to master. And so when you see all those things, all those checks, that green light up and it says, okay, now merge, that's what's going on there. But it doesn't merge to master until you do that. And what you'll see in Netlify is something like this. So notice in my deploys, notice I have a deploy preview, then I have my production. What does that mean? The deploy preview is what happens when you do the pull request. That will automatically kick off. It goes through the whole pipeline to make sure everything is working. And as long as you get green check marks across the board, you know that your tests all passed, the Netlify integration, everything passed. That's when you merge. And when you say merge and confirm merge, now you're going to your production deployment. That's actually what puts it out in production, right? So there are a set of steps to go through, but once you've gone through that pull request once, you should see all that service come into play. Okay.
David?
Yeah.
The Daredevil's having an issue in Discord. I'm wondering if maybe he didn't create the my branch. Is that possible?
That could be possible. If you don't have my branch, if you didn't do the step to create my branch, then there is no my branch to push up, right? So I would double check. If you do git branch, you should see what branch that you're in. So if you do this, if I say git branch, there we go. You can see I'm in my branch, right? So make sure that you have my branch. If you don't see that, then you're going to have problems with the rest of it. Now, like I said, I know that some of you have some questions and everything. We're not leaving you behind, I swear. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the Astra and Stargate section. We're going to talk about that just for a moment. And we're going to go to the next lab because these next labs are kind of key. And let me drop that for you. Okay. All right. So now at this point, I know some questions have already come up. Like, what is Astra? We've talked about it a little bit, but we really haven't dug into, the crux of what it does and what it is. So Astra is a NoSQL database. It's Apache Cassandra as a service plus DevTools. So let me just talk about Cassandra just for a moment for those who aren't familiar with it. Apache Cassandra is a NoSQL distributed database, right? So if you're used to relational databases like MySQL or Oracle or whatever, it's a NoSQL, not only SQL, distributed database. This means by its very nature, it doesn't exist on a single instance or a single machine. It's actually comprised of multiple what are called nodes. It's a peer-to-peer system. It's masterless. That means that there's no master or leader node. Any node can do what any other node does. Now, what makes Cassandra so cool, right, is and what it's known for and what was purpose-built to do is to be able to not only perform at scale, but be extremely robust. This is a database that could lose 2/3 of its capability and still be available, still facilitate reads and writes, and still be there. It's called the always-on database for that very reason. Cassandra itself has been around for almost about 11 years now. It is used by so many of the Fortune 100 companies and big players and disruptors out there. I love giving, and this list is not exhaustive. I'm not going to go through them all, but some that most people recognize. Netflix, Uber, Spotify, Starbucks, Home Depot, Lowe's, FedEx, most banks, most of your credit cards. God, what other service? If you pick up your phone and look at your apps, I guarantee you have an app that you know. Sony PlayStation, that's one of my favorite ones, right? And if you imagine a lot of these apps, they are global, right? Anyone in the world could be playing a PlayStation or on Netflix is a great example. Think of the interaction on Netflix. How many million of people are on Netflix at any given time? And you could be watching a show, leave for a flight from the East Coast, fly over to the West Coast, and just pick up where you left off totally seamlessly, right? That is being powered by Cassandra under the hood. And so Cassandra has been proven from its scalability and robustness standpoint. And what's really cool about Cassandra, it scales out horizontally. So as compared to vertically scaling, where if you want to add more, you need more power, right? You add what? You add more CPU, more RAM, faster disk, bigger disk, that kind of deal. It's different in Cassandra. You scale out, so you add more nodes. And you can go from a handful of nodes to thousands of nodes. There are some big players that use thousands of nodes. And what's really cool is Cassandra maintains its performance at scale, right? And when we're talking performance, we're talking writes in the order of microseconds to type millis and reads in millis. And that, again, is whether you have 3 nodes or 1,000 nodes, that holds true, right? So anyway, so the point being is that Cassandra is this wonderful distributed database that has, that is just, it's great at what it does, but it can be hard to run. It can be kind of complex, right? So that's where something like Astra comes into play. Astra does this for you. So if you noticed earlier, what we did is you just spun up a database. You have a fully functioning Cassandra database now, right? You don't have to worry about trying to figure it out yourself and trying to figure out how do I run it, how do I tune it. That's all being done for you. Now, the DevTools part comes into all this other stuff that you get. So we mentioned before, Stargate is a part of Astra, or it's included as part of it. So you automatically get the REST, GraphQL, and document APIs as part of it. You're going to actually use that here today. There's a SQL console you're going to use. There's a data and bulk loader. So if you want to get data into or pull data out, you can. There's metrics that are available. There's a DevOps API. So if you want to do things from the backend programmatically, you can totally do that. And for those Kubernetes folks, if you want to be able to interact with Astra, you can use the service broker. And what's cool, all this stuff is just part of it. Like these things like the service broker, this is just open source. This is free. So it's not like you have to, these aren't individual paid things or something like that. These are just part of Astra and what you get there. Now, Stargate really is an API layer that lives in between your Cassandra and your users if you so choose to use it. And what it does is it gives you things like REST, GraphQL, document, and well, SQL is already there. But that sits on a layer on top. And this is whether you're using open source Cassandra right? Current Cassandra 3, or what's coming with Cassandra 4, or even Deus Ex Enterprise, which is the commercial version. So you could use it today. It's out there. Stargate.io is, matter of fact, that, by the way, we need to fix this link. This link is broken. But if you take a look here at Stargate.io, that'll give you the information you need. So anyway, I wanted to give you a little primer there. I don't know if Kirsten, if there's anything you wanted to add to that spot.
No, I just want to reiterate that, a lot of people didn't use Cassandra for a long time because they found it too complicated, and having different ways to access the data is so valuable.
Okay. All right. So with that, let's get into our next lab. This is going to be lab 4, set environment variables. Now, here's what we're going to do for this section. You're actually going to do 3 sections, 4, 5, and 6, right? You'll see 4, 5, and 6. So that is going to be, all of these are going to deal with environment variables, right? They all take around like 5 minutes or something. I'll give 20 minutes for the total. Let me go ahead and set that up. Yeah, and go, boop. There we go. All right. That's okay, Hussein. We'll get to you, man. We'll get to you. We'll get you through it. We'll get you through it. So what I want you to do is, you'll notice we're here at lab 4, set environment variables. You're going to move on to set secrets in GitHub for CI/CD, and then set environment variables in Netlify. Once you are finished here, then stop. The next one after that will be lab 7, but we'll do all 3 of those. By the way, what you're doing here in these sections, now you're going to start hooking up the actual database credentials to your Gitpod environment, your code, to the CI/CD pipeline, and then to Netlify. That way, when you are pushing code out and you're going through your tests and everything, you can actually talk to the database and do real things. Like some of you noticed earlier that when you went to Netlify, you got the battle stacks page, but if you hit the start new game, it doesn't do anything. You're not hooked up to the database yet. These steps are going to hook you up to the database. Okay. By the way, key thing here for this first section, when you go to create the env file, if for some reason when you get to this step, you do not have an env.sh, you're in the wrong repo. You can guarantee that if you don't see this, you're in the wrong repo. So if you do see that, let us know. If you for some reason don't see that file, then let us know, because we'll get you set up. Yeah, Ashtosh, if you don't have an env.sh file, that tells me you're probably in the wrong repo.
David, if he just grabs the env.sh, will that fix the problem, or is the rest of the code an issue as well?
It's not been tested at all against Statistics Academy because it wasn't built there.
I know.
The code, I'm trying to think. The code itself, the core code is going to be very... It's the same in a sense, but what we have in master is different because of the fact that, we've skipped tests and other things. So I think if you're still in DataStax Academy, even if you pull over the env.sh, I think you're going to run into problems because when you try to test, your tests are going to fail and such because it's not constructed quite the same way that DataStax examples is. Yeah, I would honestly suggest if you were using DataStax Academy up until this point, I would honestly just go ahead, kill your repo, recreate the template from DataStax examples. Even if you don't get through all of the things with us today, this is meant to be self-service anyway, right? You can go through this anytime. We're here on Discord. I would really suggest go to the right repo and do it from there. You'll have a much better experience because you're going to be fighting with it if you're doing it through DataStax Academy. It's not meant to be the same thing. Yeah, Avinash, I see your point. I'm going to talk to that in a moment when we go back, when we get done with the lab here.
Hassan, I only I needed to do that when I was using the Academy repository, but I didn't need those flags when I used the examples one.
There we go. I'm glad to see that I didn't fat finger things today, Kirsten, and HTTP Pi works the way I would expect.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Should we talk through that really quick?
Not just yet.
You know. Okay.
But yeah, once we get closer to the end, totally yes. I mean, of this part,
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, Eshuash here. Yeah, totally. I'll get you the right repo. I'm sorry, I just saw that. Here is the correct repo to create your template from. There you go. Kenneth,
you need to save your file.
Yeah, if you're seeing that, you need to save. That's right. You know, one way to do it, by the way, in Gitpod is turn on autosave. Now, if you turn on autosave and you've already made changes to a file, you still need to save that file. But any changes after that will be automatically saved. I find that autosave is the way to save yourself, no pun, from having that issue.
Yeah, I wish that there were a way to make it the default.
There is. I don't know why, honestly, it's not working. It should have been enabled. But yeah, it's not doing its thing.
We'll fiddle with it later.
Yeah. You know, Pushkar, if you're far enough, if you want, you can go ahead and do Lab 7, but we are waiting at this point. Yeah. That's up to you.
And if you get all done, we'll give you the form. So
yeah. How are we doing on those thumbs up? Okay, a little less thumbs up. Don't forget to give the thumbs up if you've gotten done with these sections. If not, that's okay. I'll give you a little bit more time.
And if you're still having a problem and we haven't gotten back to you, go ahead and put your question again, because we've had a lot of questions going back and forth. So we don't want to leave you behind.
And sometimes if it does come down to it, if you are stuck in like a previous lab, what you can do for now, if you really want, I mean, hey, if you want to chuck at it, go for it. But you can always just watch what we're doing, ask your questions. Again, these are meant to be self-service. And we're always here on Discord and everything. You can come chat with us at any time. We're happy to get in and help, right? So if you feel like maybe it's a better idea to go ahead and just kind of wait, do the quizzes, right, and stuff, and then continue on later, do that. Also, you're not stuck to, like, when you create things in Astra and Netlify and all that, you're not stuck to those. You can actually, I can tell you now, I've probably done it 100 times at this point. You can just delete those and redo the whole thing if you want, to get the feel for it. Because it's all free. You know, you can, a matter of fact, I've probably at this point going through creating this workshop, I've probably killed and recreated my Netlify site, I can't, hundreds of times. And doing so, I'm still in the free tier, right? It hasn't been a problem. They do allow that. So anyway, you have flexibility. You've got options there. Just letting you know. Oh, Edmund cannot log in a Discord.
Yeah, that's, I don't know.
Okay, so Edmund, what's going on with your unit test when you say you can't get them to function? Yep. Okay, Kirsten's on it. She's, yeah. Okay, get a couple more folks that are done. All right, we are in the last 5 minutes, so I do want to address a couple things. Avinash, you make an interesting point. You said a little laborious, but finally done. So for sections 4, 5, 6, right? I agree, actually. Going through and having to do this environment variable thing, it's a little cumbersome, right? The good thing about it is you do it once. That's all you need through your whole site configuration. Let's put this in context a little bit. Say that I'm working on a real app, right? And I want to get all of the plumbing set up so then I can get through my CI/CD pipeline and have my production builds. The configuration we all just did and what you just did there, you do it one time. That's all you ever need to do. From that point on, for your application, you're good, right? And what did that do for us? What was the point of it? So, obviously from the local.env changes, what we're doing here is we're allowing our local application to now talk to the database, right? And then for the GitHub one, why do we do secrets? Well, one, you don't want to store that stuff out in the open. Those are your database credentials, so you store them in secrets. But then now with those secrets, the CI/CD pipeline can also effectively test against your database. Then when you go to Netlify, what are we doing there? We're storing those environment variables in Netlify. So when we push our app to production, that can also talk to the database, right? So once you've set this up once in each of those places, that's it, you're done. You don't have to do it again. So yes, it's a little cumbersome, but it's a one-time thing. Yeah, Nishant, I'm there with you, right? It is that part is a little cumbersome. Now, I should point out, Netlify actually has, you can actually do some of the integration. You can pass these values in an API. The only reason why we didn't do it is because that is when you're creating a brand new site and new Git repo with Netlify. It's an empty Git repo. In our case, we're copying one. It's already there. So if you're starting completely from scratch, you can actually pass all that stuff through the API and you don't have to type it all in and all that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we might be able to use the Netlify CLI to do some of that.
In the future, yeah.
Yeah, I'll look into it. In Discord, is
I
that
see it. Yeah.
He didn't save the Hello World file?
Well, I don't know if that's on a save here. Becca Chu, let me just give you the full code block. Make sure you have all of that because I don't know if you just gave me a part or what. Oh, yeah, but you're showing the test. Yeah, just make sure you have that full code block there. Yeah, that was my fault. The one that you're talking to right now, Kirsten. Okay, so we are the last little thing here as far as this section. So Kirsten, you want to talk to the HTTP
thing
real quick?
Sure. I will be super quick because we're getting
down to the end there. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys have used curl before to try to do the examples on our website, that allows you to call the REST APIs. But the problem is that the curl commands can get really gnarly in terms of all the things that you have to set on them. HTTPy, which is a Python tool, is actually created and designed for accessing APIs themselves. So if you look, you're going to create this document in the database. That first command, the create ABCD, of course we already created ABCD, so we'll use a different number code. And that's it was fine with it. It's all good. Yeah. All right. That's because we're using put and not post, right? If it already exists, it'll just update it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's really cool about HTTPy is you can see the headers. You can see the JSON is formatted really nicely. You can actually have it be a little chattier if you want as well. So let's just really quick look at the retrieve one.
Okay. This one here.
Yeah. We'll just look at the retrieve one. And you can see this is really easy. In fact, you can even get rid of the auth type Astra and -a default with a config file. We talked a little bit about that in the HTTPy post that we're going to put out. But this gives you a pretty easy way to interact with your data in your database. And this works for the REST API. It works for GraphQL. It works for the document API. So you can just use this one tool to figure out what your calls are going to look like in the code that you're writing. So
awesome. All right, thank you. All right, moving on. So let me get over to 7. So we're going to go into what's probably the most important part here is the Lab 7 piece. So let me go ahead and set a 15-minute timer for this one. Boop. Yeah, I put on the right time for you. Now this is where, now at this point, you've kind of gotten the full pipeline going. You've done a hello world, but now we're going to go ahead and take those environment variables you just set up right across the pipeline, and now we're going to hook them up in our code. We're going to add them in the code. We're going to bring this together, and now the game is actually going to start doing something. By the way, I just want to point out in this one, if you need to, for the insert game file, there is a code solution right here. You'll see for full code solution, then pull that and you have the full solution. For some reason you need that, go ahead and you can copy that code or you can reference it. So now the code that you want to paste is going to be in insert game JS under functions. For step 2a, let me make sure. Yes, right here. So go to function, insert game, and then that's going to be where you're going to put the code. Yeah, Nishant, what's happening in 5a, when you run your test here, when you've implemented the code, and you've hooked up the database, right? If this is all working correctly, then when the test runs, it's going to create a new game. So that's what I'm seeing here. So when my test is passing, because of the tests that we have in place, it should be creating a game document, right? It's actually executing against the insert game API. So when it does that, since we've now hooked up our database with our credentials from our environment file, our .env, that actually should create a value that should be creating a document in our database. So if you notice here, these documents I have. So watch what happens. I'm going to run my test again. And if I have a successful test, it's just going to generate a random 4, right? But if you remember last time, I had 4 values, and now I've got 5 values. I created another one. So every time I run a test, I should get one of these. This is telling me that the connection between my database and my code and my tests are running properly, and then my insert game function should be working. All right, Kara, before you go, here. I see that, I know some people have to go. Here, let me drop a form. You want this form, trust me, okay? Well, let me drop you a form that actually works. That was a weird link I just didn't give you. Please hold. There you go. Okay, that form is for the free giveaways, right? You can choose between vouchers to get your Cassandra certification. One voucher will actually give you 2 tries. Those are $145 a piece, or a $300 credit in Astra. Now, if you're using the free tier, obviously you don't need it. But if you want to start using higher tiers, the $300 credit for some of the tiers could get you like a month plus, many months actually worth of stuff. So make sure to fill out that form so you can get your free giveaways. So thank you, Kara, by the way, for being here today. Oh, Edmund, I wonder if you already have a Discord account then. Maybe you can try the reset password function or something like that. If not, do you have another email you can use? All right, let's see. Pushkar.
Yeah, Pushkar, I'm looking at, and that was with an npm run test functions.
And Nishant, yeah. No, I'm sorry, Siddhant, in 4a. This is what's going on. So if you open up the test, the insert game test.js, you're going to see that they have these skips, right? All you're doing is removing those. The reason why is because through regular TDD, test-driven development, right? You build your tests, and then you build your code based off those tests. We've already built out the tests for this code, but we had the code stubbed out. We weren't ready to run the tests yet, because if we would have run them while the code was stubbed out, the test would continuously fail. So now that we've implemented our code here in insert game, we can go to these tests, we can remove the skip, so it no longer skips them and then performs the tests. That's what's going on there. Alrighty, let's see. All right, so hopefully at this point, let's see how we're doing on the thumbs up. How many folks have gotten there? Sit down. Which one is showing that it failed? And Serkan. Like, is it Hello World or is it insert game? I would suspect anything. It was probably insert game. Now, by the way, interesting. So I have a hunch, by the way, if you're seeing that a test failed, it really depends on which one it failed, right? I have a hunch if you've gotten to this point, Hello World is probably okay. It's probably something in insert game.
Maybe,
go ahead.
Maybe not saved.
It's either maybe not saved, or if there is a fat finger somewhere. If something was off, like if I did this by accident, and then let's see if you get the same thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So this, let's see. Oh, that actually worked. How did that work? You gotta. Oh, it depends on what's being tested. By the way, that's true. Let me find something that should definitely break it. Here. This is gonna be funny if that doesn't fail. There we go. Woo. Okay. So if there was something, yeah, I would think by the point that you're getting here that that your hello world should be fine. But are you seeing something like this? That's really what I'm after. Are you seeing something like here where you're getting that fail? And it should tell you which one is in fact failing. If you are seeing that and you have in fact saved, right? That's the first thing is, did you save? So if you haven't saved, then you're going to see that, right? But if you have, oh, Nishant, yeah, the workshop technically ends in about 3 minutes. We're going to go a little over, but I'm going to go ahead and drop, for those of you who do need to leave, we totally understand. I'm going to drop you the giveaway forms and stuff. We'll talk about here in a moment because I want to be fair to that. But if you can, I would say give us another about 15 minutes and we'll be able to wrap it up. So if you didn't save though, then yes, you would get an error there. Yeah, that's great, David. But that does tell me if you did save, and if you're seeing an error here, that tells me something might be wrong in the code, right? So what you might want to do at that point, if you remember, there is a code solution here, so I'll just give it to you. What you can do is go ahead and go there, and make sure... I'm sorry, I'm having multiple conversations, by the way. Okay. Oh, yeah, here, I'll give you the playlist. No problem. There you go. Yeah, I do like this playlist. Yeah, so anyway, to kind of finish this up. So for some reason, if you take that solution code and you put that on here, that should definitely work. And it tells me something was probably fat fingered in it. As a matter of fact, I'll do it for fun. Let me go ahead and grab the raw. Here we go. I'm going to put this right over my code. And then let's go ahead and run the test. There we go. That's... Well, I mean, you all saw me just go to that link. So, that is interesting. Did YouTube do something weird with that? Or are you talking about the music channel? Oh, is that the Academy? Oh, well, that is that one. Oh, Cedric. Oh, you made it private so people couldn't see it. Oh, okay. I get it now. Hold on. I'll get you a better link. Sorry. I didn't realize that that was done. Sorry. Here. My bad. I didn't realize that. I just realized too that is pointing there. So here, let's do this. Give you functions. We'll do it this way. I did not realize. Yeah, sorry, Cedric. I didn't kind of warn you that that was set up that way. I just lost my solutions not knowing that was the case. I need that link back. That's where the solution is. Here, let me put this back.
Just make a whatever little git paste thing. Give them a link to that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, it's like a paste bin, but
if that's something you think you can do, that'd be wonderful.
I only have heard about it.
Oh yeah, I don't know what it is, or at least I'm not recognizing that right now. Okay,
it's all good.
Yeah. So that was an oops. I didn't realize that the other repository that I was linking back to for the solution was set to private. But yes, I do believe what's probably happening there is that there is something wrong in your insert game. And you know what I could do here. Let me do this. I'm gonna do something that's probably a faux pas. I'm literally going to edit this. Here, give me a second.
Live and in person.
I want this to succeed for you, so give me just a second, okay?
I'm setting up a paste thing.
Okay.
So it'll be done in just a second.
Here we go. Here's what I'm gonna do. Boom. Doot. And this is gonna be JavaScript code. Don't tell anyone I did this. Now what it'll do, I haven't saved it yet, I'm just verifying it. Here you go. Here is the working code. So if you go down now, under this full code thing, here it is. So you should be able to grab this in its entirety and put that over yours, save, run your test again, and hopefully that will be better. Okay, so with that though, we do need to move forward a little bit. So here's what I'm gonna do, right? Let's get everyone your form because we are at time. Now, we're not gonna go anywhere. We're gonna continue on, and like I said, we're gonna finish off the tail end of this, but I do know that some people do need to leave. So something I wanna point out, I'm gonna drop a form for everybody. Okay, that is the form that you're seeing here. This is for your giveaway claim, right? So this is a thank you from us to you for coming to the workshop and spending time with us and giving us your attention and all that. Use the email that you registered for the event with. But then the key thing is this. You're going to want to pull your DB. The instructions are right here. You want to pull the database ID from your Astra database. You put that here and you choose. Do you want the voucher to take your Apache Cassandra certification, or do you want a $300 credit on Astra? It's up to you, right? You choose one or the other. And this is the thank you, right? So fill out your form. Yes, we have the 2 questions. We're going to continue with those, Siraj. We're not done there. And we're just going to finish some things off. Still showing page not found.
I copied.
The I see now. I see.
Into a gist. So.
Yeah, and Redouel. Yeah, so Redouel found something fun. Found the super secret deploy code build. So we're gonna move into Lab 8. They're right that there is a super secret deploy code at the very bottom. If you do this, it'll just push the absolute full game and all the code will be right. And that way, if you want to get the, it worked, you can just do that and you'll see it, right? If you want to struggle a little bit more with the code, then that is up to you. I think what I'm going to do though, because we are at time, I'm going to go ahead and just walk you through this part. And then we can, you can do that if you wish, along with me. But then if you really want, and I'll do it at the end, I'll do the super secret full game option so you can see that as well. This is actually very quick. you can just do this and it'll literally overwrite what's in master. It'll push it right to production and you'll be able to see the whole thing. So if you really want to get that feel of, oh, this worked, then do that one. But I'm going to go ahead and walk through this real quick. All right, so let's walk through it real fast. And we are now in lab 8. So at this point, we've made our changes to insert game. So we've got some changes and the test, right? And we want to go ahead and push those up. So I'm going to add those to my branch. I'm going to commit them and then push. That's going to push it back up to my GitHub. Now, at this point here, what it's telling you here is instead of listing out all those instructions again with the pull request, it's saying essentially do the same thing you did in lab 2 with your pull request, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over to my GitHub, go to my code. It sees that I have changes, so I'm going to do my pull request. I'm merging my branch, the changes I just made with insert game, into master. I'm going to create the pull request. Now, this is that part where it's going to kick off that integration, right? So what's really neat about this, if I take a look at Netlify, come back up to my deploys, there it is. Here's my deploy preview, right? So check that out. Right now, it's going through GitHub Actions. It's running all my unit tests, my integration tests, and everything. And this is the point, again, if I come back here, you'll see that it's actually setting it up. It's going to do npm install. It's going to do the whole thing, right? But the real key thing is that it is this whole pipeline is now in play. So you'll see if I look at the deploy log, you'll see this is building and everything. And you'll see it's doing that here. So now this is the point where I am waiting for my test to complete. This is that pull request part, right? For those of you who aren't familiar with this. All right, we'll see how this looks over here. All right, it's still going. And again, just in case you didn't get it before, I'll go ahead and drop that. Oh, Kirsten beat me to it. Oh, which link is that? Oh, it's that one.
That's Discord. A couple people are still having fails on their NPM, and I asked them to come to Discord.
Okay. Oh, here's the GitHub link for where we're at right now, if that's what you're asking for as well. Thank you, Manisha. Okay, how is this doing? Let's take a look here. Okay, good. We're almost done with our app. So it's actually really nice too. Is through this whole process you can see what it's doing, right? You're not kind of left in the dark at all. Oh, here we go. Almost there. Okay, so you can see it's doing... site is live. Great, right? So if I come back... Okay, that's my deploy preview, right? So that means that... Refresh this real fast. Okay, so it's still doing something in the GitHub Actions. Oh, it's just about there. It just hasn't completed up yet. There it goes. Boom. Okay, great. All of my tests succeeded. My Netlify integration, we saw the deploy preview. It did it. So now it's saying I can merge. I'm going to go ahead and merge, say confirm. Now it pushes it into master, right? You'll see here in Netlify in just a moment. There it goes. Here's my production build being pushed, right? So this is going to push that new code. By the way, and this is that step where I was saying ensure to let all of your functional unit tests complete before you merge. But now it is building my production version. Now, obviously, you're not usually doing these back-to-back in quite the same way, right? You're going through an iterative process where you're going to do your pull request, let your automated test do its thing, and then come back and check, and once you're ready, then you push. We're doing them kind of back-to-back. And then once this finishes, I should have this. Now, remember that we set up our environment variables. That's why we went through that step. That's why we did this part here, because now when the app is deployed, and when it's ready, I should actually have interaction with my database, right? And then I don't have to do this again. This is all set to go and all of that. Okay, look, it looks like my production build is done. Yes. All right, so let's go ahead and do it. So now this is the fun part, right? So now if I go to my app, here it is. If I say start new game, I have DNAT, right? That's my code. So if I go back to my database, I should have DNAT. DNAT, there it is. So now I know it's hooked up to my database. It is working. This is my production app that has been pushed out to the global CDN with my serverless functions and everything, right? So you've got the whole setup going. And if you really want to, like I said, you can do the super secret full game option, which will give you the full game, right? You can run the whole thing. Right now, all you can do is start it just like that. But just a couple things right before we kind of sign off here, right? Is just to kind of, there was a lot here, honestly. There's a lot here. There's multiple tools in this, but the point being is once you've gotten your stack configured, once you've got your code, you've got it in your GitHub repo, you're using your CI/CD pipeline in GitHub Actions with Netlify, you've got that configured. Now you're ready to rock. At this point, you can now start coding against your app and you can get your process going. And then as you're adding to your app and as you're making changes and stuff, you're pushing that in to master with your pull requests and everything, and you have this whole process going. And now, again, from all front-end code, you can actually push an application out in production on a global capability with no IT staff or anything, right? And you've got a database under the hood that can scale with you. Netlify can scale with you. This whole stack is actually set to be able to continue to scale. So if your app goes viral or whatever, you're good to go, right? You essentially just, matter of fact, in Astra, with that capability, you're going to be able to scale out in a serverless fashion where you can just scale as you need it. Same thing with Netlify. So anyway, I hope you kind of grasp that. If anything, that's what I want to leave you with, is that with this whole Jamstack setup, it really sets you up so you can kind of be a one-person shop if you want it to be, and you can have like a full realized app and deploy that. Kirsten, do you have anything else?
No, I just really love watching you guys learn stuff and getting things working. Please, come hang out with us in Discord. We're there all the time. And we have people in Australia and people in the EU. And so, pretty much anytime you'll find someone there you can chat with or ask questions of, and we love to help.
Yeah, by the way, I'm seeing some of the, I saw Cedric did kind of an informal poll there about, is it better to do the 2-hour time frame or split it up or whatever. And it's just something, it's something that, we kind of go back and forth on, do we want to keep to a certain format or split it up? We definitely appreciate your feedback, so definitely give it to us. And one last thing, Nishant, would be great if you launched the game once on your desktop to end this workshop. It should already be there. And if we are running, yes. So if I do, let me grab this. Boop. All right, that's Hello World. But let's see. Here it is. Let's start a new game. I don't remember if I had the, oh, did that not work? Ha ha ha. No, that's no way to end. We can't do that. But yeah, it is launched there. That's funny enough. I have to debug that one, Nishant, because it works in my production. But for some reason it's not responding here, but I need to take a look. Oh yeah, I have something going on. I'll need to take a look. All right. Yep, 2 hours is okay. I got it. All right, so with that, everyone, anyone send me the link? Oh, Alethor, I put the code in the page. Lab 7 doesn't actually have any new code. It's actually in the one before it here. Let me give it to you. And then we can, it's right here. So there you go. I will give you that link. If you want the full thing, then you can go down to, again, here, the super secret full game option. I'll drop this for you as well. There you go. There you go. If you follow that, that'll actually give you the full game. If you actually want to start the game, what you do, you'll need 2 windows because it is intended for you to have someone who's running a lobby and then somebody who's actually in the game. So you just go to the link that you get in Netlify here. This will do this start new game, but if I say /lobby, oh, oh, I'm missing. Actually, no, it is. Oh, it's over here. Sorry, that's too funny. Yeah, I'm missing a part to that. But yeah, you would go to /lobby in that case, and you'll have the full game. And with that, and Mustafa, I see you. I'll be right there with you. And with that, thank you everybody for coming with us today. We really appreciate you being with us here in the workshop. I hope you got something out of this. And follow us on Discord. Hit us up on LinkedIn. Feel free to hit us up after. We're not going to go anywhere. All right. So with that, see you everybody. See you, Kirsten. And thank you. And as always, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notifications for all of our future upcoming workshops.
Imagine a being gifted with powers from the goddess of Cassandra, who grew those powers until she could multiply at will, move with limitless speed, and unmask hidden knowledge. With those powers, she was able to fully understand the connectedness of the world. What she saw was a world in need of understanding. From that day forward, she sought to bestow her powers on all who came into contact with her, empowering them to achieve wondrous feats.